In this experiment, we're going to investigate the behaviour of a diode. This is in fact a light emitting diode, an LED, whereas this is a traditional diode. They're both exactly the same, they work in the same way, it's just that this one emits light when current's flowing through it. This one doesn't emit light, so you can't see whether a current is flowing through there. One thing you'll notice in this circuit is, as well as the diode, I've put a resistor in here because in the right direction a diode has a very, very low resistance, and that will very, very quickly damage the diode if I'm not careful. So I've put what I call a protective resistor into the circuit to protect the diode. So what I'm going to do, I've connected up my circuit, I've got the power supply here, and I'm going to switch it around so that I can have plus and minus potential difference. I've got my ammeter, I've got my diode and my protective resistor, and you can see that at the moment I've got a loop that goes from the power supply through the ammeter, through the diode, through the resistor back there. So the only other thing I need to add to this circuit is a voltmeter, and I'm going to connect the voltmeter across the power supply so I can measure the voltage that I'm getting from my power supply. So here's the voltmeter, and I'm just going to plug it in so that I can record what voltage I'm applying, what potential difference I'm applying across the diode. So I've now got a voltage of plus 5 volts, and I can read off here, I'm going to round that up, but that's reading 28.8 milliamps. Okay, and I'm going to decrease the voltage down to 4 volts. Okay, so we've got a roughly 4 volts, and this is now reading 20.0. Go to 3 volts. .4. Okay, so I've still got 1 volt, but it's not enough to actually drive any current through the diode. So there's no current flowing through there. And that's one characteristic of a diode, is that you do need a certain amount of voltage to drive any current through it at all. You can't just expect it to go from initially turning the voltage up and the diode switching on. It needs a small amount of voltage before the diode will actually light up. And you can see that if I go back up again slightly, you can find out when it switches on. Okay, so it's switching on around there at about 1.5 volts in this case. And at 0 volts, and I've got 0 amps. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch the power supply around so it's driving the voltage in the other direction. So it's now trying to push the current the other way around the circuit. And if I increase the voltage up to -1 volts, so that's at -1 volts, and I've got no current flowing at all. It's showing me 0 on here. Two volts. 3 volts. And this, as much as I said, is that a diode acts like a one-way door. It's only going to allow the current to flow in one direction. In the other direction, no current can flow at all. So you have to be very careful when you put a diode into a circuit, because it will only work in one direction. So in this case, it only worked in the positive direction, where that's the only time we got any readings. and as we went down in the other direction, into the minus direction, we've had no current at all showing on the ammeter at all, or the milliammeter. So it only allows current to flow in one direction.